Hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm Julianne and I talk about books, how to not let them take over your space and my ongoing battle against my TBR. And today I'm actually going to be talking about writing. So this is the first of two videos I'm doing this month to celebrate the fact that about a year ago, towards the end of August, I became a self-published author for the first time. I published my novella, Unlucky in Lockdown, which is set during the first 2 weeks of the UK lockdown, the very first one, that is. And it's basically about the experience of two young women who live together in a flat in London, and how they cope, really, with everything that's going on and with each other, because they didn't really like each other before and avoided each other if they possibly could. But now they are forced to spend a lot of time together. They have to learn to get on. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about how I did it, really, my process from beginning to publication. So I actually started writing the novella a few days after the end of the time period in which it takes place. So I actually started writing it a couple of days after it ends, if that makes sense. So I was writing it in almost real time. So I first started writing it and I didn't know that it was going to be a novella. I didn't know what I was writing. I thought it was going to be a short story. After a couple of days I thought it was going to be a bit longer than I'd initially anticipated. I had written a novella before. I wrote a young adult novella a couple of years ago, which unfortunately is just kind of on the shelf even though I finished it, because there are no publishers for young adult novellas. So yeah, that's just doing a thing. I'll talk a bit more about that and my publication choices in my second video. But yeah, so I kind of knew that it was going to be a novella, and I just kept writing, really, until I felt that I'd tell the story that I wanted to tell. And at that point I finished it and I was like, okay, right, that's the end of the plot as I want it. I don't know what to do now. So I sent it to my beta readers. One of them is my partner Nick, and the other one is my friend Dree, who I did a master's degree in creative and life writing with many years ago now, over 10 years. We were on the same program doing our MA together, and we have had a workshop group that we've both been part of basically since then. And I knew that she was willing to read my work, so I sent her the novella and she gave me some really useful feedback, as did Nick. So I actually went through 7 drafts of Unlucky in Lockdown, or Friendship in the Time of Coronavirus, as was its working title, for a really, really long time, right up until like the last minute. It was called Friendship in the Time of Coronavirus as a working title because I just didn't know what else to call it. And then suddenly Unlucky in Lockdown popped into my head and my partner was like, that's so good. Did you think of that before? And I was like, no, that's just come into the picture now. So yeah, I did 7 drafts. Some of those were sent to Nick and Dree. Some of those I just did on my own. I kind of worked through, read through. Probably the most useful thing I did was to create a beat sheet. So a lot of people will create a beat sheet before they write. And that's actually what I've done for every subsequent piece of writing I've done since, all the long form stuff, that is. Anyway, I have done a beat sheet for the 2 novels that I've written in the last 12 months. So I wrote a novel for NaNoWriMo, which I'm actually in the editing process of now, and I also wrote a novel during the April Camp NaNoWriMo. So for those, I actually started off with a beat sheet. I planned it all out before I started writing. With Unlucky in Lockdown, I didn't do that because I knew what I wanted to happen in the end, sort of, maybe, could have gone either way. And I kind of knew where I was aiming for, and that was enough for that kind of writing because it wasn't that long. It was much easier to keep in my head than I found the novels to be. But I did do a beat sheet during the editing process where I went through and I wrote down every single beat. So it's every single thing that happens, basically. If you've ever read the book Story, it talks about how in every scene something must change, and that's kind of the general idea I was working with. They're about every 1,000 words or so, I find. Sometimes a bit more, sometimes the beats are a bit shorter than that, sometimes a little bit longer, but that's usually how it works out for me. So I went through and I planned out all the beats, and I looked at the structure of the novel, and I tried to make it, novella rather, and I tried to fit it into a 3-act structure. So you have kind of your introductory act, you have your kind of middle point where the tension kind of ramps up, the bulk of the plot happens, and you have your 3rd act where you have your climax, and then you wrap everything up. Because it's a novella, it didn't fit quite so neatly into this structure, because all of the advice that I saw in it was for novels, not novellas. I couldn't find any detailed advice on how to plot out a novella. So I basically plotted it out like a novel and just kind of assumed it would be shorter, right? I just kind of was a bit more loose with the structure. So I kind of looked at that and I could work out where the problems were. I could see where it was a bit weaker, where it needed more oomph, where things needed to be dragged out a bit longer, where there needed to be more tension, where there needed to be more plot, basically. And yeah, I can make changes based on that. And that was really, really, really helpful. As I say, that was the most helpful thing I did other than getting people to read it. So then I think I got them to read it another time, and then I was done. I was done. Yeah, that was the most terrifying bit, when I was actually done. So then I got Nick to proofread it, and I also read it through again myself, and then I was ready to publish. So how I published it basically was just a matter of uploading it onto free sites. So I uploaded it to Amazon firstly through KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing. You can of course choose just to upload to Amazon, in which case you can go into the Kindle Unlimited program. However, because I knew I wouldn't be charging money for it anyway, I didn't see the point in kind of limiting myself to Amazon. And I know quite a few people boycott Amazon, don't want anything to do with Amazon. My own views on this are much more complicated, but I do respect people who have chosen to completely boycott Amazon. So I also used a website called Draft to Digital, which basically you upload your book to it and then it puts it out on lots of different retailers' websites. So that's how I got onto like things like Apple Books and Kobo, and also it can now be like purchased by libraries as well, to go into their catalogues. And in the 3rd place I put it was Google Play, because you can't use Draft to Digital to go onto Google Play, so I had to do that separately as well. But yeah, you can get unlucky and knocked out through the Google Play bookstore. So after that, and a lot of faffing around and trying to understand tax forms for websites in the US, even though I wasn't charging any money for it, which was a bit frustrating, it was ready to go. So then I had to do the cover design. So I have done like some basic graphic design courses before, so I feel like the main thing that has given me is the ability to know when something looks bad. So I opened up Adobe Spark, which is a lot like Canva if you've used Canva, but I use Adobe Spark for work because I have a Creative Cloud subscription through work, so I was used to using it, so I decided to give it a go and design it on there. So what I did was I kind of looked at what people had already done for book covers, copied it, and then kind of did my own version. So like changing up the fonts, and then I also changed the background. I took a picture myself for the background. I did look a lot at stock images, but none of them were quite what I was after. So I took my own background photo, and I called on the advice of my sister, who has a photography degree, to help me work out exactly how to frame the shot I wanted. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. That wasn't the most complicated thing in the world, picking the background image. It was just the difficult thing, I think, was getting something that worked with text over it. You don't want something too complicated that's going to detract from the text. You want the text to be clear and readable, especially if you're going to use it in things like Instagram posts, where initially it's going to show up pretty small as a thumbnail on people's phones. So yeah, I just sorted out the cover design, and then you can just upload a Word document to a lot of the platforms, publishers. but I didn't do that. I uploaded an actual EPUB file, and I think on Amazon did the conversion from EPUB into the Amazon format using Calibre. And basically that involves creating a HTML file if you're going to do it manually. Again, you don't have to do it manually, but I'm a perfectionist. And also Nick owed me one. Because I had proofread his novels, all of his novels, and I proofread his comics as well. So he owed me a lot of work. So basically I finished it and then he did the HTML file for me, so which involved kind of manually going in and putting in the italic coding and bold coding and things like that. I can do this myself, right? I know HTML. I've known HTML since I was a teenager. It was self-taught. I can touch type hypertext still, because I used to be on forums where you could do like ridiculous frames around your posts and things like that. The glory days of the internet, when everything took forever to load and you just made it worse by adding in all this coding. But because he owed me, I didn't have to. I didn't have to do it, even though I could. So yeah, he sorted that all out for me and gave me the file back, and then I uploaded it and was away. It takes a little while for it to get approved, so Amazon's pretty quick. Most of the platforms on Draft to Digital were pretty quick. Google was pretty quick. There were some which kind of like had a backlog, so it took a while. I think it actually took a couple of weeks in some cases for Unlucky in Lockdown to appear in the stores. But pretty much once I was up on Amazon and Google Play and Kobo, I decided it was time to launch. So how did I launch? Did a big announcement on all my social media, of course. I think I sent a newsletter, and I also did a video announcing it on YouTube. For which I kind of like dressed up and did like a lockdown book launch where it was just me, dressed really fancy, having a chat, pretending like I was answering the kind of questions that I'd be answering if I was being interviewed at a book launch. And that was really fun. It's silly. It's very, very silly, but it was fun. So yeah, that is how I did it pretty much. Would I do it that way again? Yeah, if I wanted to do if I wanted to self-publish something, I would probably do exactly the same stuff again, with a few more steps if it's a novel, because novels take so much longer to edit. I can tell you, I've been editing my NaNoWriMo novel for months now, and I'm not at the end. I think I may be on one of the last few passes of it, but who knows. I'm only actually on like draft number 4 though, because I think it was more structurally sound. I think that's the best way to describe it than Unlucky in Lockdown. I think writing Unlucky in Lockdown and dealing with the beat sheets really helped when it came to writing a novel. I feel like it's been a progression for me. I didn't really get plot until I started writing short stories, and then I got quite good at writing short stories, and then I wrote a novella, and then I wrote another novella, and now I'm writing novels. So it's a very straightforward progression for me. I mean, not that it's a progression in the sense that I would never write a short story again. I mean, I'm hoping that my life will be full of short story writing, because I absolutely love short stories. But it has helped me, starting with the shorter kinds of writing, and then moving on to the longer pieces. So yeah, that's it. That's my process that I'm very happy with. And I would do again. So please let me know if you have any questions about the self-publishing process. I'd be delighted to answer them. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you'd like to see more from me. And if you would like to read Unlucky in Lockdown, of course it is linked in the description box. You'll see me again soon. Bye!